We have with us today Judge Louis J. Presenza. He's President Judge Emeritus of the Municipal Court of Philadelphia. Judge, I want to thank you for participating in this program to preserve the rich history of the Philadelphia Municipal Court. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Tom. Again, it's a pleasure to see you as always.
It's great to see you, Judge. Let's start from the beginning. Why don't we go back in history and you tell us about where you were born, where you were raised, your parents, siblings, where you went to school.
Okay. In fact, I guess I'll be 73 in a few weeks. Born in South Philadelphia, raised in South Philadelphia, went to St. Rita's Grammar School, Bishop Newman High School, then matriculated to St. Joseph's College, now university, and then Villanova Law School. My parents were first generation Italian Americans in this country. Siblings, I have an older sister who, she doesn't like when I say that, but she is older, and she's a nun, has been a nun for, I guess, 55, 60 years now. And I have a younger sister who is married with two adult children. They live out in King of Prussia. Worked from the time I was in high school, had jobs on and off through college. Upon graduating law school, my first year out, I was a judicial law clerk to the Honorable G. Fred DeBona. I then went to the State Attorney General's office, working with the Department of Transportation. I did that for approximately 5 years. I then moved on to become General Counsel of the Philadelphia Housing Authority. Did that for, I'd say, 5 to 6 years. And during that time, maintained a private practice. And then in 1982, I was nominated by Governor Thornburg to fill a vacancy on the court. As we discussed earlier, it happened to be Judge Jackson who moved the CP, so it opened the vacancy. He appointed me. I was confirmed by the Senate, and then was elected to a full term in 83. Term started in 1984. I was retained in 89, 95, 01, and 07.
Okay. Now, you mentioned you went into private practice. Was that before or after you had served as a law clerk and general counsel of the Housing Authority?
It was during the time when I was general counsel of the Housing Authority.
Okay, and what sort of practice did you have?
It was primarily estate work. I'd say maybe, let's put it this way, I'd say maybe 75% civil under the big umbrella term of civil, and 25% criminal.
Okay, and during your career, what mentors aided your moving forward in your legal career and your college career? Who were the folks that?
Well, I would always start with my parents. God rest their souls. Without my parents, I wouldn't be here, and I say that proudly. So when you start at home, and that continued through my entire career. Beyond that, Judge DeBona was a major influence in my life. Chuck Peruto was another major influence in my life. There was another gentleman, Alexander Sarcioni, who was my quote-unquote boss when I was with the State Attorney General's office, who really helped with my career. And, to be honest with you, a lot of it was just talking to people in general. I mean, it may not be a mentor, but like talking to Tom McGill and, yeah, I did this, I did that. I mean, it was a learning experience beyond mentoring in terms of just talking to other folk who had more experience than I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you're appointed to the Municipal Court of Philadelphia. And how long were you on the bench before you retired?
Close, 27 years, basically.
Okay. And you accomplished a lot. Your resume reads like it's amazing, all the things that you accomplished. So tell us about your judicial career.
Well, it was quite interesting and very rewarding, even though at times frustrating, as you could probably understand. But I came on, as I said, in '82, and in those days, you used to rotate between civil and criminal. And quite frankly, I preferred the criminal over the civil.
Hmm.
So after into my second year, I guess I was primarily exclusively assigned to criminal court, and I did that for the rest of my career in municipal court. Uh, in 1996, I was appointed the first supervising judge of the criminal division of our court. That was by President Judge Silverstein with the approval of the Supreme Court. And then in 1999, I was elected the president judge. And then in 2004, kind of like reelected unanimously for another 5-year term. And then I retired in '09.
Okay, so you're the first supervising judge of the criminal division. How did that change your role on the municipal court?
Well, basically, we were getting inundated with both civil and criminal cases, especially on the criminal side. So it was my understanding that the Supreme Court had met with Judge Silverstein and said, as the PJ, it's probably a lot on your plate. I think you need to diversify here. So Judge Gilbert was appointed supervising judge of the civil division. I was the criminal division. And I basically was to oversee the operation of the criminal division. I mean, I didn't appoint judges to courtrooms or assign them to courtrooms, anything like that, but was basically to see that cases were being processed in a timely fashion. Any questions that judges had on any issue involving the criminal side of the court, they can come to me. A plethora of meetings I had to attend, you know, either with MC itself or joint meetings with CP. So it was a pretty busy job, and that was in addition to my going to court every day.
Right, right. And then president judge, how did that change your role?
Well, that was a major role because it was like Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. So when you have basically 30 judges, maybe 200 employees, and say a $15 million budget, and you have to interact with the district attorney, the public defender, the mayor, the city council, the police department, all those entities, it's pretty demanding and pretty responsible position. Now, in addition to that, while I did that, I was also the presiding judge of the Philadelphia Treatment Court.
Right.
So for 2.5 days, I would sit in the treatment court, and the other 2.5 basically were my administrative duties. But quite frankly, even during the 2.5 days I was in court, was administrative duties that were still being addressed when I got out of court.
Now, as busy as you were, yet you've still served on committees and commissions involved in the substance abuse issue. You've lectured extensively.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I must say candidly, aside from the reward of my family, the greatest reward I've had in life is helping to start the Philadelphia Treatment Court, which was the first court of its kind in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that was in 1997. We opened the door. And it was so rewarding to see people who unfortunately were caught up in substance abuse or alcohol, and trying to give them, a second chance to rehabilitate themselves and move on. And it was very rewarding. But the way it happened was Kevin Murray, God rest his soul, was the court administrator, and he came to me and said, "Do you want to start a drug court?" I said, "We got a drug court. It's in 285 City Hall." He said, "I'm not talking about that drug court." "What are you talking about?" So he explained the concept of a drug court. So I went to the president, Judge Silverstein, and the PJ said, "Hey, it's on you. You want to do it? That's fine. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, it's on you anyway." So I said, "Well, what do we have to lose? All we're doing is recycling people. So I have nothing to lose." So as a result of the team working together, which is Mary DeFusco from the Defender, George Mosey from the DA, Barry Savage from the city's health department, and a plethora of other people, we kind of put this thing together. And as I said, it's very rewarding. I mean, I guess the 12 years I sat there, I probably saw over 3,000 people, and we had a 75% graduation rate.
Tremendous.
And 1 year out, the recidivism rate was less than 5%.
Fabulous. Now, you, as a result of that, then became notorious, I'll use the word, and then were invited to chair or co-chair so many other commissions,
Yeah,
programs.
as a result of, as I said, we were the first one in Pennsylvania. We're probably about the 150th in the U.S. Right now, there's over 3,000 in the U.S., and they're in at least 15 other countries. But as a result of being, what do I like to say, one of the pioneers, and I say that as a team, not just me personally, we got involved with the Justice Department in D.C. and other people around the country, and as a result of that, I was asked then to become a trainer, a lecturer, a panelist, uh, a peer review person. So that was all done as a culmination of my being one of the first people to get involved in this. And subsequently, I was then elected to the board of National Association of Drug Court Professionals, which was in '01. And then I was elected to chair of that board, I believe it was '05 to '06. And now I'm still an emeritus member of that board.
Are you still involved with those various
Yes.
committees? And
Well, no, not the organizations. No, I don't do the peer review anymore. I don't do the counseling or the what I call TA technical assistance. It's like at this stage of my life, it's kind of like back off a little bit, as
okay,
you could appreciate. But I'm still involved with the board. I was the chair of the ABA interest group on substance abuse disorders and mental health. I held that for about 4 years, and then I stepped down. Now I'm a vice chair, so I'm still involved with that organization. Uh, so I'm still busy with a few things, like you said, with some boards and things. But it's kind of like on my time,
okay.
and not to sound selfish, but it's like after all those years of working, and I want to spend time with my wife and my family and my lovely 8 grandkids.
That's
So,
wonderful. So, in addition to your duties and responsibilities as supervising judge and president judge, you found time to be involved with all of these various commissions and committees. How did you do that?
well, uh, I think there's an old saying that you always give the work to be done to the busiest people. And I always found myself to be very active, very engaged, and always trying to hopefully make a difference. So when someone asks, "Do you want to do this? You want to do that?" I had a hard time saying no until later in life.
Okay.
But I just thought it was something. We were in the infancy of this whole program, this whole process, and I just thought it required time and energy. And if I can be a part of that and I can be helpful with that, same thing with the Pennsylvania Association of Drug Court Professionals. I helped start that organization back in, I think it was '01, '02, I don't recall. And then I became the inaugural president and then was reelected again. And I don't say this egotistically, but you talk about being busy. I was the PJ of MC. I was the chairman of the board of NADCP, and I was the president of the PADCP all at the same time.
Tell me about your legacy. Um, how do you want future generations to remember your tenure on the municipal court?
Well, my father, God rest his soul, used to say, "You come in this life with one thing and you leave with one thing. That's your name, meaning your reputation. And you never want to tarnish it." And I always tried to do that. I did not want to tarnish the name or the legacy of my family. In terms of myself personally, I just hope that I made a difference, and that I made the criminal justice system somewhat better, that I helped change people's lives for the better. And that's the thing that I would, all the other things we talked about is fine and dandy, but the bottom line, it is the bottom line is, what have you done? And the bottom line is, I hope, like I said, the criminal justice system has been improved by the changes that we made. And likewise, all the people that we help, not just in the treatment court, but in other aspects of the court system.
Okay. And I think that legacy is what you've earned and what you've worked hard to earn. And I think your reputation is stellar.
Thank you. Thank you. Could I tell you one funny story, though?
Certainly.
I told you I was nominated by the governor in '82, and Joe Glancy, the president judge at the time, we were sitting at the roundhouse. So this is Friday evening, and Glancy's supposed to take the midnight to 8 shift. And they're waiting to have my official papers delivered to my home so I can sign them and get sworn in. So Bob O'Donnell, who then became the Speaker of the House, he comes to my home and delivers all the official documents. Judge Silverstein comes over from the roundhouse because he's doing the 4 to 12. And I'm sworn into my home on the family Bible. And then I go to the roundhouse at midnight to start working. Now, I mention all this because now they have, as you well know, the quote unquote baby judge school.
Right.
We didn't have any baby judge school. You were sworn in, you're going to work. That's it.
You started right away.
Right away.
That's amazing. So I know you haven't mentioned it, and you're being far too modest, but tell us about the awards and honors that you've been given over the
Well,
years.
there were several. I can't say. I guess the Brennan Award from the Bar Association is very meaningful. I mean, they all are. I know I shouldn't say that one's better than the other, but coming from your peers in the Bar Association, I think that's very meaningful. And then going to the Judge Stanley Goldstein Hall of Fame at the NADCP was most meaningful. And I happen to know Judge Goldstein, God rest his soul. He started the first drug court in Miami, Florida in 1989.
Wow.
And that's why everything was named after him, and did a tremendous job. The other thing is the Pennsylvania Association of Drug Court Professionals, when they have an award in my name, and that's given out annually to someone in the drug court field in the state of Pennsylvania who does outstanding work, in terms of the clients, the programs, the court, etc. And the last thing, I guess, was a few years back, the Law Dragon magazine had said that I was one of the top 500 judges in the U.S. So
Amazing. So as you look back on your career, how would you say the practice of law has changed?
Well, I think it's much more difficult and challenging today for lawyers than when I was practicing law or when I first came on the bench. I think there's a lot of stress out there. It used to be a guarantee that if you were a lawyer, doctor, accountant, you had a successful career. That's not necessarily true today. And I see a lot of young men and women, they come out with debt. They may not get the jobs they want. They may be disappointed. And the other thing is, and this is true, I guess, of the country as a whole, but it's been going on for a while, is that civility is, I don't see it as much as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the days when you would have a handshake, on a continuance or whatever the request was. Now you better have 8 emails and 10 text messages confirming everything. And, I know that's the best way to run an airline, but I guess it's the way you have to do it. So I think today it's much more challenging for lawyers, especially young lawyers. And, for those in the criminal end of it, the criminal defense lawyers, it's like I saw one the other day, I won't mention the name. So you still work? And he said, yeah. I said, you're like MacArthur when he addressed the Corps of Cadets at West Point. He says, old soldiers never die, they just fade away. I think criminal defense attorneys, these kind of fade away.
Right.
But and in a way, that's good. I mean, if people want to stay active, God bless them. It's wonderful. But again, I just think that today it's more challenging. I think the expectations are higher. I think the demands are higher, and I think the stress level is much, much higher. Matter of fact, people come to me, their children go to law school, and I sit down with them and tell them, I said, these are all the good things about law school. Even though practice law, it's very helpful.
Exactly.
But there's a flip side to this. And the flip side is it's a very stressful career. And lawyers at one time, may still be true, had the highest substance abuse percentage of any profession.
Mm-hmm.
And suicide was number 2 or 3. So it's tough today, I think, in many instances.
What advice would you give to young new judges?
Well, I think the first thing, and we all know about this, is you don't want the black robe disease. And, you're not better than anybody else. The fact that you were fortunate enough to be elected or appointed or both, and the fact that you have a robe and all the benefits inherent to that, you still have to treat people with respect and dignity. So you can't think you're better than anybody and think that, you're going to demand this, demand that. So you got to be respectful. I think the second thing is that you must be decisive. Uh, you have to make decisions, and if unfortunately make a mistake, they have appellate courts. But you can't be, and I've seen this. Some people wishy-washy. Matter of fact, there was one comment one time that with a particular judge whose name I won't mention, it was like a tennis match. Whoever had the last volley, you can't do that. So you got to be decisive. I think the other thing is, uh, I always had was prompt in the courtroom. I didn't want to keep people waiting, and I have found that some judges, unfortunately, for whatever reason, don't stick to that. And I think it's unfair to the parties. I mean, they're supposed to be on time. You should be there on time. And I don't know how much time we have left, but there's one anecdote I'd like to tell you. But if we run out of time,
No, we're fine.
okay. Well, the anecdote is this: I was the emergency judge, and I get a call on Sunday evening to go to courtroom 285, which was the drug room, and it starts at 8:30. So I get there at 8:30, and I'll make a long story short. There's nobody there except the court stenographer. No DA, no PD, no court officers, nobody. I mean, police officers, nobody. So by 9 o'clock, they start trickling in. So by 9:30, quarter 10, they're all there. Well, I'm making buttons, of course, as you can imagine. So I bring them all in the back, and I said, "What's the story here? This is an 8:30 room." Well, blah blah blah. Tell me the bottom line. I said, "Well, the judge who sat there, he doesn't start until 10 o'clock. So I got news for you. I'm here all week because this judge is out sick. So I'm here at 8:30. You better all be here at 8:30. Matter of fact, because of my reputation of promptness and because of what happened that day, the police department put out a teletype to all their officers. If you are assigned to 285 this week, you better be on time. So I think that's another thing. And I think you have to maintain the dignity of the courtroom.
All right.
You can't let it get out of control. And as the PJ and also the things that I saw myself, there were times when I thought judges were doing things that were inappropriate. Newspapers on the bench, drinking coffee and things like that. I don't think that's appropriate at all. Because my thinking is if I can do it, then why can't they do it?
Okay.
And I'm going to tell them I can, but you can't. Gets back to that robitis thing, So, uh, you got to maintain decorum, maintain dignity, and sometimes it's difficult because you do get some rooms, and sometimes the cases are very volatile and controversial, and they can cause some issues. But you got to maintain the decorum of the courtroom.
And that's what you did during your judicial career. And you talked about the lack of civility that seems to be so prevalent today. What is it about the way you ran your courtroom that caused folks to feel that they should be civil?
Well, I always tried to be fair. Matter of fact, I was tagged one time. One of the uh, gentlemen from the treatment court. He saw my wife at a function. He said, "Your husband was firm but fair," and that was I guess, my brand was firm but fair. And I just thought that it wasn't about me and the robe; it was about the court and what it represents. And that if things get out of control, this is not going to help anybody. So I always felt like I said, be on time. And the few times I was late, I always apologized why I was late and told people I was late. I think I owed them that. And people, you get a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. You were a defense attorney for many years. You get a reputation. This judge is this, this judge is that. So that's what I tried to do. And I'll give you one example again. I don't know what the time frame is, but you remember the Powelton Village and Osage incidents with Move. Well, again, I'm the emergency judge, and I get a call on Sunday night
Wow.
to go to courtroom. I think it was 116, and the defendant is Michael Africa. So I walk in, and his supporters are there, and they're hollering, screaming, cursing, and they hadn't bathed in a while, and all that. You know what it's like. So court opens court, and he steps to the bar of the court. I said, "Mr. Africa, I need 5 minutes of your time." I said, so I asked him a favor. Could you kindly ask your supporters to refrain themselves and just be quiet for 5 minutes so you're not engaged in a conversation? So he's looking at me, looking at me. Finally, he says, okay. So they're quiet. So I said, well, here's the story. I don't care what your name is. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you're charged with. I'm going to base my decision on the facts, the evidence, and the law. That's the bottom line. But there's a caveat here. I will not sit and preside in this courtroom if you and your supporters are going to be out of control. Then all deals are off. So we have to maintain dignity, decorum, and control. And it was a trial. It was a bench trial because he had multiple misdemeanor and summary charges.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm giving you a minute to make up your mind. So I leave the bench and go in the robing room, and I'm looking at my watch, and 59, 58, 57. 1 minute I come out on the dot. So, Mr. Africa, what's your decision? He says, Judge, I want you to preside over my case. I said, good, I will. Thank you. It was a 3-day trial. Didn't hear a pin didn't drop. So again, I had to maintain dignity in the courtroom. I wanted to be respectful and fair. So you try and combine all that. And, fortunately for me, that day it worked. If I did another time, who knows what may have happened, but, it went well. So.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you or we haven't covered that you would like to share with us?
No, I think you've covered a lot of ground. I guess I can go on for hours about stories and so forth, which you don't need that. But just to say that my experience in municipal court, as I said, was very rewarding. And I thank Judge Clancy. I thank Judge Silverstein, who preceded me as PJs, all my colleagues that I've worked with over the years, some unfortunately who have passed away. And just thank them for their service, and thank them for helping me in any way they could. And as I said, I just found it very rewarding. And but after 27 years, it was time to pass the baton.
Understood. Judge Presenza, it's been great seeing you.
Tom, thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for everything, and thank you for all that you did.